free Valhalla DLC for God of War Ragnarok is now live, and it offers a ton of cool new gameplay and story moments and a couple of surprises I think none of us saw coming. There's also a ton of new story content to discover, and I noticed during the stream that a lot of people think this DLC is just some combat arenas and that's all there is to it. Of course, no spoilers in this video, but I can confidently say that is far from true. So I'll tell you everything you need to know in this video, starting with how to access the DLC. Because in order to play Valhalla, you need to download the latest update for Ragnarok and download the DLC from the PlayStation Store separately. Once you've downloaded both, you can access the Valhalla DLC through the game's main menu. And while the game recommends you finish Ragnarok's story before entering Valhalla, as the DLC is basically an epilogue to the game, if you want to jump right in, you can do that too. You're also asked to pick one of the 5 new difficulties before starting, and what is good to note here is that higher difficulties increase the amount of rewards you get. So while the game recommends you start on the Resolve difficulty, I found Courage, so one higher, to be very manageable too. So I recommend you start with that for 20% increased rewards and then tune it to your preference as you keep playing. After doing that, you're off on a new adventure with Kratos and Mimir. Yes, no companions for this journey, and you'll quickly notice you lose access to most of your items and armor too. In fact, on your first run, you don't even have a shield, as the first attempt is kind of an introduction to the story premise of Valhalla and you're supposed to die shortly after entering anyway. As I said, there is a lot of new story here, both about what Kratos and Mimir are seeking in Valhalla and what's happening in the realms now that the war with Asgard is over. So you can also expect some really cool cutscenes, and the more you play, the more of the story you discover. So even if you only played God of War for the story, Valhalla is still a worthwhile addition, especially if you're a longtime fan of the series. The DLC draws heavily on Kratos' Greek past, so there will be enemies from the Greek trilogy that you can fight, locations inspired by Greek temples, and some even bigger surprises that I don't want to spoil, but that will definitely make your jaw drop to the floor. And I want to go over the exciting gameplay changes for Valhalla as well, so if you enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe as well for more videos on God of War and the Valhalla DLC. Because there are even more interesting changes in the gameplay department, as Valhalla uses a ton of inspiration from the roguelite genre. So while you have all your weapons and all your skills, your runic attacks, armors, relics, and Yggdrasil amulet are all gone. With the idea being that you get some of these unlocks again during each run through Valhalla. If you then die, you will lose them and will find different perks and upgrades in the next attempt, making each time you enter Valhalla feel like a different experience compared to the last. Some things are always the same though, and that is the choice of items before you start your run. You namely get to pick one shield and one Spartan Rage, which are then locked in for that run. What is cool is that the game incentivizes you to switch these out, because each new attempt, one shield and one rage will be highlighted with this glow, meaning that if you pick it for that run, you'll gain increased mastery seals, which are one of your key upgrade materials, so definitely nice to grab as many of those as possible. And then once you've selected your shield and rage, you enter the doors to Valhalla, and then your goal is to make it as far into the realm as possible. Once you've played a bit and all the mechanics are explained to you, each attempt follows a similar structure. You fight through several arenas, collect your reward, until you eventually reach an elite encounter where you have to kill an enemy marked as the Chosen of Valhalla. After doing that, you can use these magic sand portals to reach a boss fight, and then you enter a new set of combat challenges and rinse and repeat. While encounters, areas, and rewards are mostly randomized, the first room is always the same from what I've seen so far. You defeat a couple of easy enemies, and then you get a reward chest with a weapon glyph, which grants you a perk for one of your weapons. Because again, your weapons have lost their additional buffs and powers, so in Valhalla you'll find perks and upgrades in these chests. Good to note is that these reset each run, so while they influence your playstyle for that attempt, you don't keep them for future tries. And the choice of perks you come across is mostly random, although as the game notes, the first weapon glyph chosen influences future glyphs offered in the current attempt. Which in my experience means that if you pick a buff for the Leviathan axe in the first chest, you'll find a lot of runic attacks and other weapon perks that also affect that weapon later on in the run. So that will sort of set a main weapon for that specific try, but you are of course free to switch between your weapons as you see fit. And while progression in Valhalla is mostly linear, after a few attempts you will find that these larger areas called sanctuaries will offer multiple paths forward. The reward for each encounter is actually etched into the door, and if at any point you're confused on what these icons mean, open your equipment menu and press L3. This will pull up a list of all symbols and what they mean, so you can pick the type of reward that is most likely to help your run further. Of course, you never know what exact buff is going to be in a chest, but each one always offers you 2 options to pick from. There are also 3 new resources to collect that can help you out during a run or even offer you permanent buffs buffs that will help you during all future attempts. Let's start with fleeting echoes, which are used to buy upgrades that only last your current run. You get some of these after each combat encounter, and you can find them in reward chests as well. You then spend them at these tablets of endeavor, often found in those sanctuary areas, and use them to buy several helpful upgrades. For starters, you can buy a bit of health or rage should you need it, but even better is to save up and upgrade one of your runic attacks. There's also a glyph section which has stat buffs for sale, which again, since your stats are reduced to their base level, can actually be very useful. But the upgrades bought with these echoes are lost on death, as are the echoes themselves actually. But as I said, there are also ways to gain permanent buffs, and that is where the other two resources come in. Mastery seals can also be found in reward chests or can be earned by completing labors and mastery challenges. And these can be spent at the Tablet of Reflection before you enter Valhalla to buy permanent upgrades for Kratos. You can buy health and rage upgrades, permanently boost your core attributes, and even buy the ability to start each attempt with a resurrection stone. And right next to the Tablet of Reflection is the Tablet of Influence, where you use your spirit seals to change certain aspects of Valhalla. So for example, you can increase the amount of buffs available for purchase at a Tablet of Endeavor, or make sure you start every attempt with 100 fleeting echoes. These permanent upgrades are your way of powering up and reaching the later areas of Valhalla, or of course to get strong enough to attempt the higher difficulties and increase the amount of resources you get even more. Reaching key points in Valhalla's story will unlock even more features and opportunities for you to get stronger, including new permanent upgrades to unlock at the Tables of Reflection and Influence. But not all upgrades in Valhalla are gameplay related. Since armor doesn't matter in the DLC, you're free to customize your look however you like at the appearance pedestal. Some looks are already available right from the start, but most have to be unlocked through several different means. Some are unlocked through challenges, some purchased at a tablet, and some, like the new Flawless Zeus and Ares sets, are found in chests in Valhalla. So it'll probably be a while before you unlock all of them, as especially the challenge related ones require multiple runs to complete them. And challenges are actually much more important in Valhalla than they were in the base game, as they can also unlock some very valuable materials. There are two types, Mastery and Labor, with Mastery being more about seeing everything the DLC has to offer, like looting every type of runic attack from chests for example. Labors on the other hand are more bite-sized tasks, like using a specific attack or defeating a specific type of enemy a number of times, and need to be handed in at the labor marker in the starting area. After completing a labor, a random new one will be cycled in, and these are endlessly repeatable, so you can use them to keep grinding for materials. Kind of your daily/weekly challenges for this activity, and another way to help you get stronger and reach the end. Now there is one final thing about the Valhalla DLC that I really want to discuss, but I have to get into spoiler territory for the DLC to do so. So if you haven't fought your first Greek soldiers yet, come back to this video later. If you have, you probably already know what I'm talking about, but just in case, yes, we finally have a freaking sword in the Norse saga. And not just any sword, but the legendary Blade of Olympus that was of course a very important story element in God of War 2 and 3. You unlock this new legacy raid shortly after you've beaten your first boss in Valhalla, and it functions very similar to the Fury Spartan Rage in that it completely changes Kratos' moveset. So now you have a new light and heavy melee combo with this enormous sword, and it just feels amazing to use. And the cool thing about the Blade of Olympus is that each individual attack can be charged by holding down the button, and when these charged attacks hit, they will also restore some health. So that goes for your regular attacks, your ranged L2, and the gap closer you perform with triangle. You can even mix a charged attack into a regular combo, just keep in mind that the charging animation leaves you exposed. Parrying and killing enemies while in Legacy Rage restores a bit of rage so you can keep it going for longer, and like with Fury, you can exit the rage early by pressing L3 and R3 again. So it's definitely on the more offensive side. You actually need to get kills where Fury heals you when you hit an enemy, but it's quickly becoming my favorite rage ability. It's just so much fun to use. So yeah, I know that many people hope this sword would come back in Ragnarok, and while I still can't believe I'm saying this, with Valhalla it finally has. And to make it even better, there is actually a way to use the Blade of Olympus in the main game. More on that in a future video, so subscribe to not miss that one, and if it's already up, you can watch it by clicking on the screen. More Valhalla videos are also coming your way. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!